Hey everyone, welcome back to another Citrus Corner. Today, me and my brothers are going to be talking about some villains possibly coming to the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. We got a little bit of I don't even know which view would call that, a sneak peek at the D23 Expo, but uh, rumors circulating even more with a certain interview with an Imagineer who could possibly be working on the project. We got some other things in the pipeline for today's show. It's all coming up on Citrus Corner as part of OG 55. All right, fellas, let's get started. But before we do, I have to introduce my brothers joining me today on this wild ride. I'm going to start down below. Mr. VashSky, producer Dre, host of Freshly Squeezed, Dre the DA. How you doing, brother?
Well, okay, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Thank you. No, I was joking. No, yes, I am very, very happy to be here, George. Thank you so much for playing the Master of Ceremonies today and inviting me on to this very interesting Citrus Corner. It's filled with so much robust discussion. But hey, if you guys want to follow me, you can go do so right down there at VashSky. Just go ahead and it should pop up. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Code 55, where we have shows like Citrus Corner. We have shows like Orange Nerd, and we also have my own Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. And by the way, we're going to be talking about Mandalorian very, very soon. Very interesting episode with Story Geeks with Jay. You want to go ahead and subscribe for that, folks.
Absolutely. And of course, right next to me, I guess it's your right, my left, or vice versa. I don't know which way it is, folks, but this guy doesn't need an introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. The creator of this channel, the founder, if you will, that makes all this possible, the OG himself, Mr. Orange Grove 55. How are you doing today, sir?
Thank you. I am doing fantastic. I cannot wait to talk villains with you, talk some Walt Disney World. I think it's going to be a great time.
And now your host,
Disney Family Man 23.
Thank you, good sir. So within the last week, Disney Imagineer Chris Beatty sat down with Entertainment Weekly for, as Mr. VashSky said, a robust discussion, if you will. And they had brought up the notion of the villains having a bigger presence in the parks, particularly Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, due to the little what if segment at the D23 Expo this past September, where it was the what's beyond Big Thunder Mountain. And there were several lands involving Coco and Kanto, and then, of course, the villains, potential villains land, where the audience just erupted with applause and roars going on from the whole entire Anaheim Convention Center. And that kind of sparked the Imagineers to think, okay, it got great feedback that if they were kind of doing this as like a type of sit down type of meeting, if you will, to see what guests' reaction would be. And everyone kind of took to the villains, which there were long rumors going on that got shoved aside for Dark Kingdom, which that was the original subject matter if the villains were to come to the park. But Chris had mentioned to the fact that, they did take note of that, of guests' reaction. And even though nothing is set in stone, but it keeps on coming up in the conversations, whether it's on third-party outlets like Yahoo or Google. But this interview is showing up all over the place. So I don't think, right now nothing's going on, but I think it's nothing short of a coincidence that, something is kind of stirring there. And especially with Universal they just announced their Monsters land that's going to incorporate the classic Universal monsters, Dracula, the Mummy, Bride of Frankenstein or what have you. And they refresh my memory, fellas. What was the name of that land?
Dark Universe.
Dark Universe.
But George, I just want to interrupt you just for a second. You forgot the biggest Universal villain, the most iconic Universal villain of all time.
And who would? Yes.
I knew you. I just knew it.
It's my brand. The kids love it. I gotta do it, right?
Absolutely,
George.
But no. So go ahead.
Well, did you want to read those comments out that Chris Beatty actually said, like in his words?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just real fast, George.
This
comes to us via Entertainment Weekly, like you said. Disney World Imagineer addresses fan interest in hypothetical villains land from D23. Quote, "We took note." This is what he had to say. "We're dreaming every day about what could be next to Walt Disney World. We just wanted to give you a peek at some of the amazing things that could be coming. It's changing every day. It's exciting. I think Josh was really trying to get across the spirit of creativity, of what could be next, of innovation, of the possibility of what could be is still alive and well at Walt Disney Imagineering," he says of the D23 presentation, which stresses was not intended to highlight concrete plans for the parks, but rather his team, quote, "dreaming about what could be ahead." Yeah, okay. The villains concept got pretty good applause, he admits. "We took note of how loud the applause was when we announced that." So that was his specific words right there. George, please continue.
Yeah. So I just thought that this was kind of a interesting topic that, again, kind of going back and forth with Disney and Universal. You know, Universal announces the title of their Monsters Land, and now with the villains popping up, I think that this is like the route that these companies are going into, especially just because of how popular that these characters, these are the villains that we love to hate. And, you know, we would love to see them in the parks. And of course, all three of us have spoken on the phone of just throwing off ideas of what we would like to see in the villains layer, so to speak. But I think what's more interesting is that during that segment of the expo, the concept art was kind of less detailed than the one that they presented at Animal Kingdom. So, which makes me wonder that now Chris Beatty is still mentioning more of the villains than Coco and Encanto. So it makes me wonder, are they now just going to spearhead the project moving forward for just villains?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, they mentioned that they gauged the audience reaction at the expo. Maybe going into the expo, they thought the Moana thing would get more of a response or whatever. So they kind of put more into that art or what have you. But maybe they were just they didn't expect the Villains Land to get the big ruckus applause like it got. Like, so look, I think they're definitely looking into this, and I think that this land, if done right, can be absolutely incredible. The kind of land I'm kind of envisioning in my head is sort of like a very dark fantasy, kind of like dark fantasy land, very akin to like Wizarding World. It's very fanciful, very magical. At the same time, it has that dark edge to it. With the Gothic architecture and what have you. That's the kind of approach I'd like to see Disney go with a Villains Land. I think that would be really, really dope. There is a risk though. And I'm going to be fair here. I mentioned on a show the other day with Dre, you know, the risk of building a Monsters Land at Epic Universe, because you're giving away the monsters all year for free, basically. It's a lot harder to sell those Halloween upcharge events when you're giving away the stuff all year, right? I think Disney has a similar problem with the villains, though. You make a Villains Land, awesome, dope. You can go all year. It's fantastic. But then it's a lot harder to sell those Halloween events. Like, one of the big draws for the Halloween events at Walt Disney World and even Disneyland is that, you know, these events are really focused on those villains, meeting those villains. Well, if you have a land dedicated to these villains all year, I could see that pulling away a little business from the Halloween events. I mean, look, I've said it about Universal and their monsters, and I think it's just as much of a risk at Disney. We'll see how they handle that. But what do you think, Dre? What are your thoughts on this idea of a villain land coming to Magic Kingdom in Florida?
Well, you know, I think there are still unique appeals for both these lands that would keep people coming back for those extra charge-up events. For example, like for the villains concept, or I should say, the Dark Universe concept for Universal, you have you have the classic monsters, but the Halloween Horror Nights, that's a very different kind of horror. Let's say it's very it's based on multiple IP with the various mazes, and it's also very kind of gore driven rather than
that's true.
classic monsters driven. So I think that would be the key difference there. In terms of Disney, I think this could present a wonderful opportunity in which the villains kind of escape their land and take over the entire park. And I think that's what the appeal would be. I think that's the most genius marketing there. Plus, you have some very exclusive events. The parade, they have various representations of it at these various events, Oogie Boogie Bash included. But you have a Halloween themed parade and so forth. You have very distinct, unique treat trails and all that. So I think that would be like the key there for Disney. And I agree with you, OG. I think the way you develop a Villains Land, if they are going to develop one, which I think is a wonderful idea, would be a kind of twisted or corrupted Fantasyland, right? I mean, taking those amazing architectural styles that you see from Disneyland Paris or Disneyland's own Fantasyland, and like corrupting them, giving them almost like a Hogwarts treatment, but maybe taking it a step even further than that. You could have Captain Hook's boat, for instance, right? That could be twisted and gnarled, and you could do some really, really kind of cool, creepy things with that. So it should be very, very distinct, I think.
Speaking, and not to interrupt you, I'll let you finish. I just want to say real quick. Speaking of pirate ships and whatnot, it would be really dope, I think, to have a walk around Davy Jones. Could you imagine if they could pull that off? Woo, that'd be dope. But go ahead, Dre.
No, there's plenty of ideas here. I mean, for sure. I know some people have been kind of like, well, Villains Land, and they were posting some meet and greets or certain representations of villains as they exist in Fantasyland and being like, well, do we really necessarily need a Villains Land? It's like, well, yeah, but you could take it much further, and I think this is what they would have to do when it comes to a Villains Land in the Magic Kingdom. But George, what would a Villains Land look like from your perspective? Because I think you had some good ideas.
Okay, yeah. So, really quick before I move on to that, to address OG's notion of as far as the parties and that. Now, with Walt Disney World's Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, it's more kid-friendly driven, with the Fab Five dressing up in their Halloween attire. You have the Hocus Pocus stage show and what have you, but Oogie Boogie Bash at California Adventure more showcases the villains than Walt Disney World. So I think a Villains Land would showcase the villains more on the East Coast. So I think that's where Disney can kind of get out of that roadblock. That's just my opinion. Now to your question, Dre, now looking at this concept art here, what I found interesting is they had Coco and Encanto as the front part of this piece of concept art, and the villains layer would be all the way stretched there in the back, which kind of told me that with this Blue Sky process that they were thinking about the villains, but it's okay, let's just kind of throw them in the back. I think everyone's going to kind of be more into Coco and Encanto, where now I feel like after this interview that Chris Beatty did with Entertainment Weekly, I think it's more now vice versa. I think now the villains is going to be more of the headliner of this expansion if this comes to fruition. But I've said it even when I was at the expo and I saw this piece of concept art from the very beginning. If you look further beyond where you can kind of see the Forbidden Mountain, Maleficent's castle, and then right next to it, you kind of see a silhouette of a certain Disney villain from Fantasia. It's Chernabog. I could see you could see the oversized wings and his head with the ears and the horns. So I think, and I spoke to Dre about this over the phone, that I thought that it would be kind of interesting if they were to incorporate Chernobog sort of kind of as an icon for this land, and have him perched on top of Bald Mountain and have the wings open and close that showcases an oversized audio animatronic. And then, if weather permitting or what have you, that the wings, when the wings are shut, it is used as a rain resistant type of material, so it doesn't affect the mechanical robotics of the animatronic, or sort of something like how they did with the dragon over at Escape from Gringotts at Universal.
Yes. There's a lot of potential here with this, and it's actually encouraging to me, this artwork. I know it's vague as hell, but if you look at the silhouettes of that Villains Land, it's sort of implying that they're going with the style that we're all suggesting here, a twisted fantasy land. It's very much that style. I know it's not much, there's not much detail, right? But in general, it does seem like they're going in that direction, and that's absolutely the direction they should absolutely go in.
Now, Dre, I know you bring up a lot of Google Maps of where that location is residing, that for a potential Villains Land. Could they connect it from the right side where you can enter Fantasyland, but then it can segue into the Villains? Because it would be more appropriate, even though it would sit behind Frontierland, but to kind of have Fantasyland and the Villains Land kind of be semi-connected. Is that possible?
Let me see here. Sorry. Didn't I probably should have had this ready beforehand.
Well, here's the thing. I actually didn't know. It actually just popped in my head after OG had mentioned like a darker version of Fantasyland. So it got me intrigued.
Yes, I do agree. Where is Magic Kingdom? I could find Disneyland in like a heartbeat. Oh no.
The good thing, the cool thing about this on the fly maps thing is now we're doing East Coast edition. We did this with Disneyland Forward a couple weeks ago. Now we're going on the fly with Magic Kingdom. It's getting the Google Maps treatment.
There we go. Come on, just go back there, and then like.
There we go.
Can we get rid of the? Yeah, can we get rid of that? Okay, and then zoom in here. Yeah. Yeah. I think you can push it out. Absolutely. I think you. I think that was. I think we had a show in which we kind of featured this, but it seemed to me like what they were kind of implying with the art is that you would have a connective point between Big Thunder and Fantasyland via the three lands. So it'd be kind of similar to how Star Wars Galaxy's Edge wraps around Disneyland's Rivers of America, for example, and that creates a pathway between, Critter Country via Galaxy's Edge and to Fantasyland. So I think that's kind of what they have envisioned here, and I mean, there's plenty of real estate to the north. Interestingly enough, you got to adjust some waterways and so forth. I'm sure they will. But I think that's what they had envisioned there. It's going to be interesting. Here's the thing, okay? And I think this is why they highlighted Coco and Encanto with this art. You have to consider the D23 audience for just a second. They are super fans. They are really, really into this. And yes, I can see why they specifically would be excited. My question is, would the normies be excited about a Villains Land? Would it have that draw that I think D23 Expo fans would definitely have? It's kind of like the Dark Universe thing in a way, right? Dark Universe, like the fans of Universal, they're like super hyped, they're super pumped. They know that the Universal's potential when it comes to the monsters. But not everybody does, it's that relevancy argument that we were talking about, OG, right? I think that's happening here. I do think if done well, it can be unbelievably successful no matter who you are. But that's just the question. It has to be executed very, very highly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to ask you both the same question, but I'm going to start with you, Dre, because you had a little more passion, I will say, when they made this announcement, and you were a little bit boiled about the notion of it just being, as a what if. Well, we don't care about it being a what if. We want to know specific details. So as of now, even though as of yet nothing has still been officially confirmed, are you now a little more optimistic that the subject matter is being brought up more frequent and that they are more considering the villains concept?
Well, I mean, slightly. It was highlighted by EW themselves, but it was like one line in and amongst a very long and lengthy interview, right? And then people took that and like, oh, they ran with it. I don't know. I'm not quite there yet. Now, with Bob Iger being back in the building, because that was the different part than what we saw at D23 Expo, right? Well, D23 Expo was taking place just this last September. Chapek was still at the head, and obviously there was some what is it, capital allocation that was going on there away from the parks and to these other things. That dynamic has changed with Bob Iger. The question is will you actually go for it? It's very interesting. We're hearing about a lot of these concepts, right, in the month of March. Oh, gee, we had a discussion with Do You Trust Me, Bro? And he was saying that around this time, roughly,
Right.
in the spring, that decisions might be made by Bob Iger himself regarding a lot of these things. It's just very interesting how we're hearing about Avatar. We're hearing about even this Villains Land here. We just had a slew of announcements for Disney 100, for example, right? And investment going into Epcot itself, which we'll get to in a moment, I'm sure. It's just very interesting how we're hearing all these things bubble up right now.
Right. Well, and our source did say that. And our source also said that when Bob Iger came back in the building, everything Chapek approved was put on hold and reevaluated. And I'm telling you right now, that bodes extremely well for the Avengers e-ticket, because Marvel is Iger's baby. Okay. I don't think he's going to do many half measures when it comes to Marvel. I think you have a much better chance, I'll say that, with getting a really solid, ambitious Marvel attraction under Bob Iger than you did under Bob Chapek. I mean, and now Bob Chapek's completely out of the picture. I understand Iger was CEO when Chapek was running the parks, but I mean, Chapek still ran the parks. He still had a ton of influence on what projects move forward and cuts and what have you. Now with Chapek completely out of the picture, we got Bob Iger, and Daddy Josh is all about making Iger happy and all that. I think it bodes well for DCA. I don't want to get too far into that, but just want to put that in there because I do think that is definitely something of importance to look for in the next few maybe months or even a year.
And especially during the quarterly earnings, when Iger himself said that he just spoke to Demaro this morning about adding more of the popularity of the intellectual properties incorporating into the parks. And I think there's a possibility that, if Iger is relaying this to Demaro and Demaro is relating this to the Imagineers and the effects that it made to the crowd for the villains, I think that may be possibly in that pipeline for the group of projects that could be moving forward. Because, and then speaking of what you mentioned, OG, about Marvel being Iger's baby, recently Iger, Demaro, and somebody else quite interesting at Disneyland Paris was checking out the Avengers. So that's quite interesting. Is that a certain somebody that
There's that lady to the right of a frame there? That's a very interesting distinguishing figure.
Dana Walden, who we've all been like on this show talking like she's like the CEO position is hers to lose, essentially. Like, I think she's definitely the front runner. Not to say other candidates aren't being seriously considered. We even got word yesterday, right, Dre? Kevin Meyer.
Yeah.
He actually was interviewed about his prospects of being the Disney CEO. He said, we'll have to wait and see. Now that's interesting. That he didn't deny it. There was no denial. There was no like distancing himself. He said, wait and see. That's very telling. So maybe Meyer will come over. And look, if Meyer brings Tom Staggs into the fold.
Oh, I so hope he does.
I'm telling you, and I would be hard pressed not to think he would. I wouldn't. I mean, you typically when you move into a CEO role, you bring your people with you, and he's been very successful with Tom Stagg. So I don't know. That would be pretty dope. But I don't want to get too excited. I don't want to get too excited.
Yeah, exactly. But to see
we have-
Dana Walden in Disneyland Paris with Bob Iger, that is telling. It's about as telling as Josh D'Amaro being at the Oscars. Fish out of water kind of thing.
But we can't forget about Christine Waistlines McCarthy. Now she was there too. She's not in the frame, but she was there. She's the one that picked up Iger Starbucks. I mean, he had to have it.
Oh man,
yeah, it's very interesting how she's not included here.
Yeah,
no.
It's very telling.
The
who
McCarthy,
they're considering, who they aren't.
Well, yeah. Well, and the McCarthy rumors pretty much died. There was, I think it was a Hollywood Reporter article saying that like Bob Iger, the only reason why he didn't fire her after that whole Chapek thing was because he was fearful that letting the CEO and the CFO go at the same time would be too destabilizing for the company. So he was looking to get rid of her. I mean, she kind of lucked out, but there's no way he's going to pick her for CEO. Not a chance. It's not happening.
Yeah, and we were we weren't exactly not only fans of the idea, but also we didn't really think that it was going to come to pass. Even though she had been, there had been some maneuvers at the top position there. I think Iger saw through that, which good for him. But Dana Walden, I'm just telling you, folks, Dana Walden accompanying Bob Iger around Disneyland Paris, of all places, in the Disney Studios Park and elsewhere. This is very, very interesting. Okay, and Dana Walden shouldn't be there, but she is.
And this was even before all this even occurred, that we were all pretty much in agreement that Dana Walden was kind of the person in the spotlight for it. And then the Oscars happen, and then Disneyland Paris happened. It's just like, as they are going to different places for big time events, that she's right there alongside him. So it's very telling.
Days apart as well. Days apart.
Yes.
Right.
But I think that brings us to our next story, George.
Absolutely. But before we move on, but yeah, just a lot of things in the pipeline. I'm rooting for the Villains. I hope it does come to fruition, and we could only look forward. Keep moving forward, as the founder, Walt Disney, has always said. And speaking of keep moving forward, for this past January kicked off the 100th celebration for the company. And I'm sorry, fellas, before I continue, I think I hear something in the distance there.
Is that a train I hear, George?
I think so.
Oh no! I must have hit that track switch!
There you go.
Thank you, Mickey. So this past January kicked off the 100th celebration of the company, starting at Disneyland, which all three of us had the privilege to experience the kickoff together as a group. It was a phenomenal trip. I said it before and I'll say it again. It was one of the best times I've ever had going to Disneyland, and being able to experience that with you fellas was just icing on the cake. So now, moving over to my neck of the woods, Epcot will be hosting their celebration for the 100th of the company, starting later this year, primarily during the fall season. And of course, they're having a brand new nighttime spectacular for the 100th of the company, with a brand new song featuring Disney animation. And of course, showcasing right in the center there is Jessica Rabbit's bust. So it's
oh my gosh, it does look like that. That's funny, George. That's good. That's funny. I like that. I like that.
So the on this nighttime spectaculer, we're dubbing what? Harmonious?
But yes. But before you go on, as Mr. Bob Iger always says, we're making two.
There we go. We're doing exactly.
Yes, folks, we only have high-class stuff on this show.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Sure.
so this is what the copy says on this
Yes, go
nighttime spectacular as part of the 100th celebration at Epcot, right? Plus, a new Nighttime Spectacular will debut at Epcot later this year, inviting everyone to gather around World Showcase Lagoon for a show that will unite us through commonalities of the heart and a dazzling display of fireworks, lasers, music, and light. Featuring an original composition along with select songs from Disney's songbook, this new spectacular will remind us that we're more alike than different, connecting our hearts together as one. It sounds like harmonious to me, for sure.
Right,
yes.
The copy isn't exactly inspiring, but hey, we'll see.
Yeah, I can't really tell. Like with nighttime shows, like the artwork, this artwork is useless in my opinion. It shows me nothing when it comes to a nighttime spectacular. Number one, and number two, these shows kind of all sound the same on paper. Like I remember reading about Wondrous Journeys and thinking, oh, here we go, another clip show with a bunch of Disney animated films, and it was anything but the typical Disney clip show. It was one of the honestly, the best fireworks show I think Disneyland has ever put on. I mean, it was phenomenal. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other on this because I can't really make an opinion on something. I don't know what the music sounds like. I don't know the choreography of the pyro and everything in conjunction with that music. I just got to see it to know for sure.
Yeah,
everything
I'm right
sounds
there.
boring on paper,
Yeah, I'm right there with you, OG, because it's nighttime shows are tricky that way. And if I had a bang for my buck, that I thought that World of Color 1 was going to be more popular than Wondrous Journeys, or at least in my eyes anyways. And after I experienced it live of Wondrous Journeys, but still watching World of Color 1, it's like day and night. Wondrous Journeys is like phenomenal. And so this can go either way. I mean, it could either be spectacular like Illuminations, or it could be a total bust, no pun intended, of it being harmonious. But up until the time when the last viewing of Harmonious is on April 2nd. So starting April 3rd, along with Happily Ever After's debut back at the Magic Kingdom, Epcot is reverting back to Epcot Forever, which will be there until this new nighttime show premieres in the fall.
Yeah. And that's a good move. I mean, one of the big reasons why Harmonious was actually removed in the first place, right, was because of those horrific barges that did unsettle the food and beverage program that they have at World Showcase, right? Nobody wants to sit along the lagoon and stare at those all day. So the fact that they are, being removed, and while this show kind of takes a little bit from that, I think, especially the Disney Songbook as it relates to Epcot. I think there is hope, just because, hey, you can get this much color and water features and so forth without the use of those hideous barges. So hopefully this will be invisible in the day. I think it will be. They heard that criticism loud and wide. Loud and far, I should say, from a myriad of guests, ones that love these parks, and the others that spend a lot of money. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens here. We also got some some updates regarding the Communicore Hall that is being built here. We got some concept art for that inside. It's about what we expected. It's the typical Gensler architectural fare. This is not the
Barbara Boza. Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Yeah. Do appreciate it. I think it's okay. We'll have to see how these things actually do. When actually built out. Remember, Interventions West was demolished, thinking that they would have a huge budget to do the festival. What is it? Pavilion, right?
Pavilion. Yeah.
Up there, and that would be their kind of central structure that they could have events and so forth hosted there. They thought they were going to get the play pavilion where the characters would be featured and so forth. But, as we got into 2020, all of that actually changed. And now they have to reconstruct a Interventions West light facade or structure. And here we go. It's a little bit disappointing that those plans got scaled back. hopefully it's executed with a high level of proficiency and quality.
Absolutely. And speaking of Communicore Hall, this is going to be the new place for Mickey and Friends that's going to have the brand new meet and greet, which is going to segue into our final topic. That'll be their new home at the meet and greet in their Disney 100 attire. And not even just with them, but there are also going to be some additions for character meet and greet around Walt Disney World as well, which is quite telling if you look at the bigger picture. That Mirabelle from Encanto will be coming to the Magic Kingdom, for which would be kind of see the little correlation there. And as Mirabelle is coming out, they're kicking Merida to the curb. So it's like, no offense to that film, but it's like, if you look at the bigger picture there, which character is going to kind of last there longer. So Mirabelle's coming to the Magic Kingdom. And then also going back to Epcot really quick, later on in the year, in 2023, Figment will be making his appearance for a meet and greet, which they made that announcement back at the D23 Expo as well. I believe it is going to be late summer that Figment will appear. And then, of course, on April 22nd, Earth Day, that Moana will be making a meet and greet appearance at Disney's Animal Kingdom, for which that one semi doesn't really make sense because she's going to have her own type of walkthrough attraction at Epcot. But at the same time, it does make sense because there you are. Right. Well, so you can kind of see both with Mirabelle from Encanto at Magic Kingdom and Moana at Animal Kingdom with both of these what if concepts. Is this the start of...
Well, it's funny. It's funny with the Moana thing. It's like the fans were like, when they announced the water thing, they were like, "Why are we having Moana in Epcot?" Then they announced the Moana meet and greet in Animal Kingdom. Why isn't the Moana meet and greet in Epcot?
Exactly, yes. Right.
Like, what do you want?
Well, now that Moana's in Epcot, you think she'd be there, but no, she's in Animal Kingdom. Why is she in Animal Kingdom? Well, read between the lines. This is where they want to establish those characters. Is there an on? Oh, well, they want to establish that character too, but that's a whole other story. Why do they want to establish those characters there? Maybe this is a hint at plans of things to come. I mean, if Moana is truly successful at Animal Kingdom, sometimes even with character meet and greets, that's how they gauge audience reaction, audience expectation, audience or guest satisfaction, all those kind of things. So them kind of bringing her to Animal Kingdom, it is very telling, folks. There's something going on here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the same goes for Mirabelle. As you pointed out, Dre, that you went back to the other part, that Encanto still may be coming to Magic Kingdom. But we're going to be actually closing this out. But any final thoughts, fellas, of anything that we discuss? For me, anyways, I'm starting to get intrigued of things to come. There's small little things, but sometimes the small things can't, better than the big things.
Yeah, we're in a better position today going forward, I think, with the parks than we were a year ago. I'll say that. Absolutely.
It's a I don't know if it's a great, big, beautiful, but it's a very interesting, intriguing DMR. Right? So,
absolutely.
That's where I'm at.
Well, George, it was really fun talking villains with you.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
Since we're talking bad guys, I thought we'd play a little Scarface.
You were trying to figure out a time to fill in that slot, so now
I needed to. I love my Scarface drop. I had hey, villains, bad guy, it works. So I just threw it in there.
We're all about the theming of this show.
Yes. Thank you.
Take note, WDI. So, but before we close down, everyone comment down below. We want to hear from you. Everything that we discussed today. What are your thoughts on villains coming to the Magic Kingdom? Coco, Encanto, the character meet and greets, even though this is an OG 55 type of topic, Dana Walden becoming the head of the company. We want to hear from you. And so I'm going to start down below. Mr. VashSky, Dre the DA, producer Dre, the man who wears many hats. Where could everyone find you on social media, sir?
Best place to find me is going to be at VashSky on Twitter. It's right down there for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. And if you want to go ahead and see me, well, it's going to be that channel you watch right now, Orange Grove 55. We have some amazing shows like the one you're watching here. It's Just Corner, my show at Freshly Squeezed, and OG's Orange Grove 55, Orange Nerd, and Jay's Story Geeks. So you definitely want to subscribe for that. And if we're talking about villains and maybe altering deals,
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
there you go.
There we go.
Awesome.
That was perfect drop, Ray. That was good. That was good.
I mean, when I think of two great villains, I think of Vader and Al Pacino's Scarface.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then, of course, the guy next to me, the guy that makes it happen, who started this channel from the ground up. That if it wasn't for him, Dre and I wouldn't be part of this awesome community, and the channel that you have grown is just phenomenal. And I'm so glad that we could be a part of it, just a little slice of that orange, if you will. Mr.
Nice.
Orange Grove 55, thank you for joining Citrus Corner today.
I think I can say, and I think everyone watching can also agree with this sentiment, that this channel would not be the same without you fellas. Love you guys, amazing, and you put up with me and the countless, endless videos we make, and it takes a lot of time out of our days, and you guys have busy schedules, and I just appreciate you guys immensely, and thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We share the love on this channel, because that's what it's all about. And with that being said, everyone, you have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
Ha ha ha!